Welcome to the Gavel. I am Benny Ark. President Bola Tinubu, in a joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives on Wednesday, 29 November 2023, presented a sum of 27.5 trillion naira as the proposed 2024 budget. The president, in his address to the National Assembly, described the 2024 budget as the budget of renewed hope. Here is the report.
For his first budget presentation, President Bola Tinubu arrived at the House of Representatives chamber at exactly 8 minutes past 11 o'clock in the morning. Accompanied by some governors, his chief of staff and ministers, he is then warmly received by the lawmakers. Before the president's presentation, the Senate president harped on the effectiveness of a good legislature-executive relationship in fostering development.
It is an opportunity for us to deliberate, scrutinize, and collaborate in order to ensure that the budget aligns with the needs, hopes, and aspirations of our people.
All eyes then turned to President Bola Tinubu, who began his presentation by expressing confidence that despite the short time available for budget defense, the January to December budget cycle will be maintained.
I am here today confident that the National Assembly will continue to work closely with us to ensure that the deliberations on the 2024 budget are thorough but also concluded with reasonable dispatch. Our goal is for the Appropriation Act to come to effect on the 1st of January 2024. I trust you will do it.
The president then proceeded to present the 2024 appropriation bill, tagged Budget of Renewed Hope.
The budget proposal meets our goal of completing critical infrastructure projects, which will help address structural problems in the economy by lowering the cost of doing business for companies and the cost of living for average person. The proposed budget seeks to achieve job-rich economic growth, macroeconomic stability, a better investment environment, enhanced human capital development, as well as poverty reduction and greater access to social security. Accordingly, an aggregate expenditure of 27.5 trillion naira is proposed for the federal government in 2024.
The 27.5 trillion naira budget is to be funded using parameters from the medium-term expenditure framework, which put oil production at 1.78 million barrels per day, with expected sales at $77.9 per barrel and 750 naira to a dollar. A breakdown of the budget shows a recurrent non-debt expenditure of 9.92 trillion naira, debt servicing at 8.25 trillion naira, and capital expenditure of 8.7 trillion naira. The president speaks emphatically on the country's internal security.
Defense and internal security are recorded top priority. The internal security architecture will be overhauled to enhance law enforcement capabilities and safeguard lives, property, and investment across the country.
He then proceeded to lay the budget. The 2024 budget comes over a month later than previous budgets in the last assembly, leaving Parliament with less than 3 weeks to conclude the budget defense process.
In our recent engagement with MDAs on the MTEF, we emphasized the need for revenue-generating agencies to double their targets to meet the 18 trillion revenue projected in the budget. Mr. President, the effectiveness and legitimacy of fiscal policies depend to a very large extent on public support. As the People's House and in line with our legislative agenda, the House of Representatives will convene the first National Citizens Budget Town Hall to harness public input and opinion on this budget.
The president talks about lowering the cost of doing business and cost of living in the country, and urges Parliament to ensure that only projects and programs which align with the vision of his government should be included in the budget. President Bola Tinubu's 2024 budget proposal struck a responsive chord for many of the legislators at the joint session, who believe there is a huge chance for success, particularly with the planned economic growth of 3.76%. Reactions began pouring in on the president's call for expedited action on the 2024 proposal.
We have a constitutional duty to go line by line, issues by issue, and ensure that the numbers, agrees with the shared microeconomic objective, and also align with the fiscal and monetary policies that he tries to speak to.
The proposal is bold and courageous. I think that the legislature will have little or not too much work to do. The budget will act as a stimulus package to address the current poverty line that Nigeria has fallen into, and once again recover our economy and fertilize it for even growth.
The last time when we had to screen ministers, we had to suspend our recess in order to do it, and we worked till 11 at night some days. It might have to be the same thing again this time, but because really the time is short.
Although the lawmakers have barely a month to conclude the budget defense process, they show a determination to double down on the scrutiny of the budget.
That is the reason why we've called MDAs and scrutinized their performances in the 2023 so that we can see how the 2024 projection can be attained. There are a lot of leakages, and we are working on how we can block those leakages. And amendment that we need to do on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, we're going to do it in order to enhance and bring sanction to those MDAs that pilfer into the revenue generated.
The MDAs must be on their toes. They must be ready to come for the budget defense 24/7. The Speaker has expressly stated that we will not condone representation. Once you are invited, you must come and defend what's right.
The federal government's borrowing pattern and the Senate president's request for a reduction of the nation's debt profile also elicits reactions from federal lawmakers.
What we need is more transparency. We need to know where the money has gone to and what is being used for. As you know, the first supplementary budget that was given to us to deal with, we're told that some of it were palliatives for the people. And up to now, I'm still waiting to feel the impact of that palliative.
Averagely, it's a very fair budget, except that we have to look at the area of funding. Now we are borrowing 8.7 trillion naira, which is about $8.9 billion. So obviously speaking, I think that's not too much of borrowing for 250 million people. Dubai is owing $164 billion. So what is Nigeria owing? Less than $100 billion. Dubai is 8 million people. Nigeria is 250 million people.
Following Wednesday's presentation of the 2024 budget to the joint session of the National Assembly by President Bola Tinubu, lawmakers on Thursday began debate on general principles of the 27.5 trillion naira proposal. Let's take a look.
The Senate has asked the federal government to withhold statutory allocation to any local government councils not democratically elected. The upper chamber unanimously resolved that this move will deter dictatorial tendencies of any state governor. The resolution comes on the backdrop of a motion moved by Senator Abba Moro on the urgent need to halt the erosion of democracy vis-a-vis the dissolution of elected councils in Benue State.
The Senate notes with dismay the dissolution of democratically elected councils in Benue State. The Senate also notes that in placing caretaker committees to replace elected councils is an aberration and alien to the 1999 Constitution as amended for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. aware that Section 7.1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended guarantees a system of local government by democratically elected councils. Also aware that it is the constitutional responsibility of every state to ensure the existence of local government councils led by duly elected leadership by the people, and this is sacrosanct. Accordingly, the Senate condemned the arbitrary dissolution of democratically elected local government councils in Benue State. 2, urge the governor of Benue State to adhere to his oath of office, to obey the rule of law, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The Senate has queried the violation in disbursement of the 135 billion naira CBN intervention fund to some firms in the oil and gas sector, threatening to involve anti-graft agencies to recover the monies from any defaulter. The chairman of the Senate Committee on Gas, Senator Agam Jaribe, issued the threat when 14 companies listed appeared before it to defend the loans they collected. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources disclosed that the disbursement of the gas fund by the central bank violated the guidelines for accessing the 250 billion naira set aside for it.
They didn't follow the guidelines. You know, the ministry is not even aware that funds were released until we did the publication. Meanwhile, the guidelines states clearly, without ambiguities, that they are supposed to do evaluation at the ministry, send the qualified names of obligors or beneficiaries to CBN for them to be able to assess the funding. But that was not done properly. And we discovered that some of the companies that collected these funds are portfolio companies, and they have nothing on ground to show. So the committee is going to investigate all of that and tell Nigerians the true position of things.
The President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, has urged the federal government to deploy ecological funds towards tackling life-threatening environmental challenges. Senator Akpabio gave the advice during an interactive session between the Senate leadership and officials of the Ecological Fund Agency, led by the Permanent Secretary of the Ecological Project Office, Malam Shehu Ibrahim, at the National Assembly. Reacting to the submissions made by the Permanent Secretary, who lamented the inadequacy of the 3 billion naira monthly allocation to his agency to tackle daily demand, Senator Akpabio urged the agency to prioritize its interventions. According to him, the method of intervening and selection of projects must be such that they will put urgency outside of the normal data they are working with. The Senate President further promised that the Senate will carry out necessary legislative actions to assist the Ecological Office perform optimally, while encouraging the office to be proactive, particularly in instances where natural disasters would occur. The House Committee on Works says the adoption of concrete for road construction must be subjected to a thorough thought process. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Akin Alabi, stated this during the inaugural session of the committee, while highlighting that observations from ongoing projects across the country show that work on site is not proportionate to funds released.
Parliament must safeguard and protect the interests of society and all stakeholders. The House Committee on Works has been engaging relevant parties by requesting submissions on critical road projects, such as the tour of Abuja-Kaduna Road and the Abuja-Lokoja-Obajana Road, among others. However, the committee was disappointed to see the significant level of decay on our roads. What is even more concerning is that in some ongoing projects, the work on site is not proportional to the funds allocated to them. There is no doubt that we all must come together to chart a new course for our country if we want to ameliorate the sufferings of the masses. That is why the issue of adopting concrete technology for road construction must be subjected to a thought process to ensure value for money.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Gavel. In what seems like a move by the upper chamber to deter dictatorial tendencies by any state governor, the Senate has asked the federal government to withhold statutory allocations to any local government councils not democratically elected. Let's check it out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
It's the second allotted day for debate on the general principles of the 2024 appropriation bill, themed Budget of Renewed Hope.
Mr. Speaker,
some lawmakers do not agree with the 1.78 million barrels projected as crude production in the budget.
We know that since 2020, the country has not been able to achieve up to 1.9. Therefore, yes, we have declared emergency oil theft, but we need to do more.
The Honorable opinion in the oil sector is that in the past 10 years, the multinationals have refused to carry out any critical investment in oil production in Nigeria. 10 years of non-investment to produce oil is part of the reason we have this decline.
For some time now, we have had peace within and around the Niger Delta region. It's just because of the impact of the presidential mercy that is happening around the Niger Delta region with the ex-agitators. Nobody is talking about vandalization and blowing up of oil pipeline. And with that, Mr. Speaker, if we can sustain it in this country, we will do better than what we are doing. And we even surpass the 1.7 million expectation in production of oil barrel.
The tax aspect of revenue generation is also questioned.
My former colleagues in business world who are predominantly importers, they are saying this revenue of 18 trillion. I hope that I will not sit here and allow the custom and exercise to start taxing them so astronomically at the port.
The bill scales second reading as the House prepares to hold a citizens' town hall meeting to gather inputs for the budget. In the upper chamber, the senators continue to illuminate the merits of the bill.
The target around inflation, I think, is important, and that is one of the major things that affect the common man. Yes, we have seen a target of 21%, but again, both the fiscal and the monetary authorities, there must be some kind of understanding.
The oil production targets, borrowing trajectory and funding deficits come to the fore.
We need to look at the debt of the country with the view to doing something, maybe to renegotiate even the funding, where it has been said that 7.8 is to be borrowed. Borrowing is not wrong. It is what you do with the money that you borrow that matters.
I took time to go and look through the budget, and we're seeing that what was put for power was just about 3% of the total budget. Well, how would 3% of the total budget deal with an issue that is fundamental to the economy? Because if you don't have power, you do nothing. Every other thing that we are talking about, how would that work?
The senators maintain that the budget must address the protracted issue of the East-West Road and agriculture.
This government, by what they have presented, has not demonstrated the requisite commitment. Budgeting has not been taken seriously. So I want to say, Mr. President, that this National Assembly and this Senate in particular should use our powers to allocate more funds to see to the completion of the East-West Road.
Like the House, the 2024 appropriation bill scales second reading in the Senate, and committees now have 2 weeks to conclude the budget defense process.
On Constituency Focus this week, we speak with Senator Francis Fadanwusi of Osun East Federal Constituency, Osun State. He tells us about his primary focus for his constituents and his plans on the way.
In the last 4 years, which we have not even finished, just last week, we still did about 2 or 3 empowerment, which no senator is even doing again. But nowadays, it should go beyond it. The power generation is poor now. The distribution is almost at 0. If the situation of power improves, then we want small scale industries. We have to go further. Enough of distributing 5,000 naira, which could not bring any development. If the state, like what Osun is doing now, Osun is now doing some major roads to connect the farmers. Then our own would like to do feeder roads in conjunction with the local government. The local government now is working, at least in Osun. That's my area. My area is Osun East. That's Ife, Ibisa, senatorial district. Our problem now is the major road, that federal road that passed through Osun to Ekiti, Ondo, and Kwara. So if those major roads could be done by the federal government, then we'll be okay. The remaining roads that we attract the farmers to come from the villages to town, that is our own problem, which is major. So we'll be able to cooperate with the state and federal, because we have been doing it, including bridges. Then we are going seriously to agric this year. God so kind. The two ministers in agric are all agric experts, and they are from Senate. So we have to go to meet, and we have met them to advance our own cause. Because the more we produce food, the less you see villagers coming to town to disturb peace. Then, if there is power, we have to connect them to do a lot of more of artisan work, which we are trying to do now. We have provided enough transformers, which at least there's no local government that got less than between 5 to 10 out of 11 local governments. We are still doing it. Then the rural electrification is the problem, which is major, which we have to start begging the federal government. And I know under President Tinubu, who is someone from rural area too, we know how to assist us. And by the grace of God, before we finish this, you will see that the economy will improve. Without the economy of the rural area improving, there's nothing the cities can do.
That's our time on the program this week. Until the gavel comes your way next week, same time, I am Benny Ark. Be well.